It is fruit season here, and not to be dramatic, we have a ton of peaches. Now actually the reason why I have a tea towel over my bucket is because I had some apples sitting in the house for a little too long and we have a slight fruit fly problem. So this keeps the fruit flies from getting into the fruit and, well, it allows them to breathe still. So I don't have moisture building up or I don't have the gases building up and over ripening them. But these are super ripe. They have actually started sort of deforming into the peaches that were sitting next to them and they got bruises on them. So I am going to actually make puree out of these. I need to get these all washed up and I will be back in a few. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Kathryn, the Aerogarden Homesteader, and today I am processing peaches. Now, these probably don't technically have to get washed because, you know, I'm going to be cooking them a little bit, but we have untreated water that sprays for our irrigation, and I also wanted to get some of the extra fuzzy off. So I have a pot beside me. I'm just going to gently rub them because these are so ripe. The skin is actually just sort of sloughing off. But once these are all clean, I will get them going on the burner on a low heat just to start breaking them down a little bit. I don't want to cook them super hard, I just want to soften them up so that I can mash them and get them off the pit. Then I can pass them through a strainer and that will get rid of the pits, any of the stems I miss, and some of the skin, as well as any leaves that might have gotten in. These are the first peaches of the season. We have two peach varieties actually. These are a clingstone, and I'm not a fan of clingstone. They taste great, but they're just kind of a bit of a pain to eat because, well, they stick to the pit. So you can't really cut them off the pit because they're too soft. They mush in your hands. If you do the, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a plier trick. You stick the pliers in, you twist it around, and you pull the pit out. Works okay, but it kind of mashes the outside of the peach because you got to hold on to it kind of hard. And the pit still comes out with a lot of flesh attached to it, so it's just not worth it. Our other peach is a late peach, and that is a freestone. So we can cut it, slice it, it comes off the pit no problem. It's wonderful. And in my opinion, it tastes just as good as this one, so kind of depends on what you're looking for. Now we are leaning into our strengths in this endeavor because I have made peach pie filling. It's still sitting on my shelves. Nobody eats peach pie except for me, or peach cobbler, or peach whatever. Whatever you can do with peach pie filling, nobody eats it. So there's really no rhyme or reason to be making peach pie filling, especially since I still have some. Now you're probably thinking, oh, I can just do sliced peaches or peach chunks. Yes, I can. I still have a bunch of those on my shelves because, again, nobody really eats them. One of the kids will eat them if I remember to bring one up and put it in the fridge and open it and give it to them, but yeah, they have not gotten eaten either. So we are going to do peach puree because we like to do fruit peels, and I think there is more appeal in the family for fruit peels, so I need to lean on that strength to make sure fruit does not go to waste. I can also add fruit puree to baked oatmeal, and yes, I have added peach pie filling. It's just way too sweet for it, and I have added peach slices, or at least sliced fruit, and it's fine as well. It just requires a little bit more processing if I have not cut it up into small pieces. So we are pureeing it. This can actually be canned. So I found a recipe that is from one of the extensions. I actually found a couple of them. One was for fruit puree in general, and another one was for it was specific for apricot puree, but looking at the recipe, it's the same process, same recipe, same everything. So that is what we're going to do today. I will probably can up a little bit of it just to see what the texture and the taste is like. Because if there's a loss of, you know, flavor or texture or whatever, there's no point in doing that. And I will freeze the rest of it so that I can make fruit leathers in the winter. Make sure to check out my fruit leather recipe. There was a recipe going around that called for Pomona's pectin that everyone was swearing by. Well, I don't have Pomona's, but I do have the ball. So I used that one. So if you can't get Pomona's locally and you don't want to order, you know, from the big bad people, then you can just use the ball pectin if you can find that locally. And, you know, look at your Tractor Supply or your Ag Supply. They might have it. So I was able to find it locally, and it was so good. So we will save up fruit puree for the winter when it is cold out, and I don't mind heating up the house by turning on my dehydrator for 14 plus hours. Or the oven. You can do it in the oven as well. You just have to watch it a little bit more and regulate your temperature a little bit. So I'm going to get the rest of these washed up, and we can start processing. Okay, they're all washed up. I'm going to put this on probably a medium heat and get this cooking down. So big pot, big spoon, which is inadequate for this pot, but I'm going to try to start stirring it around and breaking up the peaches a little. It does call for 1 cup of water per quart of prepared fruit. I am not preparing this fruit. I'm going to just simmer it down and mash it down a little bit and then start adding the appropriate amount of water. I don't want to add too much water, but I need to add enough if I'm going to be canning it because of heat transfer. So I'm going to get like probably 2 cups of water to get started, and then from there I will see what we have going on. Although that might mess up with the measurements, so maybe I will stir it down a little bit and then see. It's probably going to take a few cups at least, but get these. Whoo, those are juicy. Yeah, I don't want to add too much water. If I add water now, I won't get an accurate measurement. Yeah, just thinking this through. Okay, so this is about half of the peaches that were on the tree. It's still a fairly young tree, but it's putting out a decent amount. The late peach is an older tree, and it is putting out a ton of fruit. And our apricot has put out a lot as well. So I will probably be doing this with more peaches later on, and with some apricots. Although I might can up some more peach slices just to have them. Now honestly, with peach puree, or any fruit puree, you can substitute it in a lot of different recipes that call for like a fruit puree. Like applesauce. I mean, what would you put applesauce in that you couldn't put peaches in? You know, there's probably a few things, but for the most part, if you want something peach flavored, then you probably do it with peach puree. It will also be conveniently portioned out in jars. Okay, so I think I got that sort of mashed down a little bit, some of the pockets filled in. Now, where's my, let me see, I got about, I'm going to go with about 6 quarts? 5. I think I got 5 quarts in here. So I will put in 5 cups of water, and hopefully that will get us going. Okay, there we go. Get some water. That is messy. Okay, here we go. 5 cups of water. Hopefully that is good. My kitchen is an absolute disaster. We had a small leak that has been going on for a while now. And so I had to clean out one of my cupboards, and now there's just stuff everywhere. It was like one of those really slow leaks that you can't really notice until the damage has been done. And we need to redo our kitchen. We're actually going to redo it and move it, but we don't have the money or resources for that right now. Although we do have some of the stuff. Every time we find something on clearance, shop your clearance sections, but every time we find something on clearance that we know will work with what we're doing, we get it. So, you know, we found some really nice under cabinet lights. We found, like, somebody ordered a stove. It was a cooktop. They ordered it, they didn't like it, they returned it. And like we got it for a screaming deal. So yeah, you gotta keep an eye out for stuff like that. We've been looking at some flooring lately because it would be nice to just get the floor in the living room done as well as the kitchen area, but it's kind of pricey right now. It normally goes on sale around this time, so maybe we will find some. Some of these are a little harder than others. I set aside some earlier that were a little harder than others, because they seemed like they would be good for eating. Let me see if I can break them up. So I will not be mixing my purees. It would be super easy for me to just chuck in a whole bunch of apricots in here and kind of do it all at once, but I want to be able to control the amount of flavor I have of each, sort of the ratio. because you know, I don't want to have too much of one and then it overwhelms the flavor of the other. So I will mix them separately and then figure out what the best ratio is that we personally prefer. And everything is just kind of personal preference. If you want to mix your peaches and apricots or whatever fruit you have, go right ahead. Okay, I think I got most of these broken down. Once they've been kind of broken down, then they can start simmering down a little and it'll be easier for them to break up. This is not going to break up very well, but this will. And I definitely want these to be broken up enough that I can pass it through a strainer. Also, be really careful with peach pits. I don't know if you have ever experienced this, but this is the top of the pit, this is the bottom of the pit, and they've got this really sharp point at the bottom, and it like digs into hands, it digs into mouths. It's really annoying. Okay, I think that might be it. Oh, no, there's another one. Okay, this just needs to simmer. I'll let it go at least 10 minutes to see how it goes, and then we will adjust from there. Okay, so I think it's actually been closer to 30 minutes, and some of it has broken down and some of it has not. So I let it go a little bit longer. There are some... So a lot of flesh was stuck to the skin, and it's slowly coming unstuck. So I think I'm at the point where I could probably pass this through a sieve. Some of these peach pits here, I actually pulled one out. This is the cleanest clingstone peach pit I have ever seen in my life. So this is a great way to create the puree. I'm hoping it turns out. Yeah, some of this is just like skins with some flesh attached to it, but yeah, I turned this off. I'm going to let this cool down because I don't really feel like burning myself trying to get this through a sieve. And we will come back when this is a little cooler to handle. But yeah, I think I will have to go through and probably mash it a little bit through the sieve. But for the most part, I think most of the pits have come clean. Most of the flesh has come off the skin. So I do have some chunks, but I think those are soft and they will break down when I press it through the sieve. That might actually have a pit in it. So I will be back when this is cool enough to handle. Okay, so I feel like it is sufficiently cooled off now that I am going to start straining it. So I have my strainer, I've got some pots to put it in. I don't know if I have enough pots, so I just don't have like I don't have another big pot like this. And then over here on the stove, I'm going to show you real quick. So this is a very large steamer pot. This is not my largest one, but I have it filled up to just below the top of the bottom plate. And then I have 8 jars in here. I believe I have 8. This could probably hold more. This is about the size of my water bath canner, but I will be steam bath canning this today. So I have this starting to heat up. The jars are supposed to be warm when you do this. Mind you, also the peach puree is supposed to be warm, so I will put that back on once I have strained it and get that warming so everything's kind of warm all at the same time. It's going to be a bit of a hot pack method. So get those warming up, and I will get going on straining this, which is probably not going to be fun, and I probably will not bring you along for the whole thing, but it is what it is. But I can at least show you how I'm doing this, and I'm sure you can figure it out from there. So I'm just going to scoop it out and just pass it through the strainer. I will probably at some point when the strainer gets a little full track down a garbage for the pits. I might try to pull out the pits and chuck those, but to save the skins and give those to the chickens. So we will see. We'll see how everything goes. Yeah, this is just going to be a slow-ish process. Some of them don't feel like they got completely macerated, so... Now, if you have a food mill, it might go a little faster than what I am attempting to do here. This is kind of the same thing, passing the stuff through a screen. I do have pits that I would have to remove first before using a food mill, but I don't have a food mill. So we're going low tech today. If you are also in the same boat and don't have a food mill, then yeah, this is the way it goes. I could probably pass it through a juicer as well, honestly, if I strained out the pits. Put it through like a really coarse strainer and strain out the pits. I could probably do that, but I have a juicer. I've used it like twice in the last 2 or 3 years, and I just don't have a good use for it. So I think I would have more uses for a food mill, honestly. Okay, I think it is time to track down a garbage can for this. Keep your ice cream buckets. They come in handy. Very well, lather, rinse, repeat. I will see you on the other side when I start processing and filling jars. Okay, let's get this show on the road. Everything is nice and hot. So this part is pretty straightforward. You just want to fill up your jars. Everything is hot. I will be doing a 1/4 inch headspace per the instructions. I will be steam canning this. This is my first time trying steam canning, so I really hope it works. It will be 15 minutes of processing time. That processing time does have an altitude adjustment, so if you're higher than 1,000 feet, definitely go find the recipe. I will have the recipe linked, but definitely go read the recipe and see how much time you need to add for your elevation. With steam canning, my understanding that it's really important to make sure to keep the lid on 5 minutes after the boil has finished. You could take it off the heat, but you have to leave the lid on for that 5 minutes because that's part of the processing time. So that is what I feel is the only real difference. So it uses less water, it should take less time to bring it up to temperature, which is great because I don't want to heat up the house. It's already going to be heating it up. So we will see how this goes. And this is just a, keep an eye out in the clearance for tamale pots after Christmas is over. They always go on clearance because they always have a few too many. So that is what this is. It's just a tamale pot. It has a rack on the bottom just to keep the stuff out of the water, but it's like the perfect size for steam canning. You could water bath can in it too. There's no reason not to. It's just that this particular pot has a very flimsy construction, and so picking up a full pot with a flimsy construction of water may not be the safest. Now, things I would probably do different. I may have put in a little too much water. While I was trying to follow the directions, I did not take into account that some of that volume was actually peach pits because I didn't pit it. The instructions do say to pit it, but these are clingstones. They are a real pain in the butt to pit, so I thought I would try to save myself a step. Yeah, next time I think I would just go through the trouble of pitting it as best I can, and then I can put in a more accurate amount of water. So this is, in my opinion, a little runny, but I think it's probably fine. I guess in the long run, for food preservation safety, I'd rather it be a little on the runny side than too thick to get proper heat transfer. So take that as you will. But definitely I think it's worth doing the processing of the pits first. It does make it a little easier to strain. I could have gone down and gotten my juicer and ran everything through it. I probably would have had a pulpier product as well, which for fruit leather, I mean, you want some texture to it. But you know what? I mean, I could probably also, in theory, turn this into like a peach lemonade. I mean, if you mix up drinks, this would probably be a good mixer for something as well. There are lots of, I feel like there's lots of uses for a lot of things, and I'm kind of looking forward to having this on my pantry to see how useful we find it with other things, or if it's just going to end up being sort of an add-in for fruit leathers. Either way, it's something different. It's not the same old, same old. I'm not adding to the peach slices we already have, and I think that this is probably a good use for the clingstone that are super hard to deal with. There is no easy method to de-stone cling fruit without mangling the fruit. Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm not sure this video is going to have a good resolution because I will probably not be making fruit leathers until the fall. So I can't really tell you how this is going to turn out. But any liquid I have left over will just get put in, well, I'll cool it, and then I'll put it in Ziploc bags, freeze it flat, and then keep them in the freezer until I'm ready to use it. That way I can kind of compare, does the canning process change the flavor? Does it, you know, affect anything else? Because we're used to just having it frozen, which I find it does break down the cell wall, so it's really easy to process. But, you know, does long-term freezing affect flavor? Sure, sometimes it does. Will canning affect the flavor? Oh, well, it probably can, because I'm heating it up. That was cute. So, pros and cons all around. We just need to figure out what works best for us so that we can move forward. Anyway, I got one more jar in there, so I probably will have a little bit of this left over, and I can just add it to the other part of the pot. Okay, I need to bring this up to temperature. I need to have the lid on, and when I see steam coming out the side really hard, I will start my 15-minute timer at that point. So I will bring you back briefly and I'll just show you how fast the steam is coming out the side, but it needs to come out like it's not just little bits, it needs to be rolling out through the sides. Then I can start the timer. That way I know I've got that the whole thing is filled with steam. Don't know if you can see how much steam is coming out, but it is just rolling out, so I am going to start my timer at this point, and it'll just go for 15 minutes, plus 5 minutes of extra time off the heat with the lid on after it's done. So, stay tuned. Okay, I'm processing more peaches, so I thought I would show this just to add as an addendum. These peaches are super ripe, and they're actually not too bad to pit. So despite it being an absolute hassle, and they are clingstone, it kind of is worth the trouble to pit them, because I did find that trying to pass it through the strainer, trying to dig out all the pits, I couldn't puree it. Yeah. I think it's worth the trouble to pit it up front, and see the ones that are super ripe, the pits just fall out pretty easily. I can also put them in some, this is ascorbic acid water, it's Fruit Fresh from Ball. I don't know how much to put in, I just dump a bunch in, but this will help prevent some of the browning as well. But it's really, I hate to say it's worth doing because it is such a pain in the butt, but in a way it's kind of worth doing. I also felt that the peaches are really juicy compared to apricots, so I don't think it's necessary to put in quite as much water as it calls for. It's sort of something you have to play by ear, but I did make some apricot nectar, and yeah, it requires the cup. But the peach nectar that I made was a lot soupier than the apricot nectar, so I think that between 1/2 and 3/4 of a cup might be more appropriate per quart of food. So now you know. Hopefully that helps with your processing, and yeah, it's a bit of a pain to get these out. See, this one wasn't quite fully ripe, and this is why I hate doing clingstone. They never come off nicely. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going with this, but this is just a little addendum to add to how the processing turned out. I feel like it turned out really nice, and it was relatively easy to do with the apricots after I had pit them. So I think I'm just going to suck it up and deal with it and pit them. And this is how it turned out. It looks great. I did have separation, which is normal when working with fruit. I did shake this one up. So far they all seem to seal. I do need to go through and take the bands off, clean everything up, but all my taps sound good. So this is how it turned out. Hopefully I can show you some fruit leathers in the fall when the weather starts cooling off. I feel like I have paid myself forward by doing a lot of the work now when there's not as much harvest going on versus in the fall and winter when I've got just a ton of stuff in the freezer and I'm trying to process it. This will hopefully save me some time. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you join along and give this a try. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll have some other videos up at the end that you might want to watch, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.